Hello everyone, welcome to this week's tutorial. And in this tutorial, we'll be talking about multiple things. So one is how to install connectors into your Mendix application. Second, how to set up those connectors into Mendix application. Third, how to use those connectors into your Mendix application so that you could get the most out of it. And fourth, we'll also see that how we can use scheduled events, right? And then you can use the scheduled events for these connectors or anything else. So to get started, I'll be taking Microsoft Graph Connector as an example. This is used by um, to connect your organization to your Mendix application. So if your organization is using Microsoft Office suite of applications, right? So to manage your users, for example, Teams, Outlook, and all those things. So your admin could set up the connector in your admin section of the Mendix app, and then you as developers can build features off of these graph connectors. So that's one. Um, this connector is readily available in Mendix, so you can download it using Studio Pro button, or just getting the download from the releases option. So I'll be using the latest one that was released in June of 2023, and then there's good documentation available inside the app. But for me, this Mendix blog by Vineet Agrawal was an inspiration. So I learned most of the things from this blog, and then I implemented it into my app. So if you want a step-by-step guide on how to do everything, this is a great resource, and I'll be linking it in my description as well. So that's that. And also, if you don't have access to this blog, or if you want to use Mendix's own material, then you can go to your Mendix app where after installing the connector, even before you set it up, there will be a README tab. So you can take the README tab. It's also available as a snippet in your application, so you can read it from there as well if you don't want to do it from here. But it has again all these step-by-step installation guides on what to do and how to configure everything. So that's one. It also gives you a small description about what Microsoft 365 platform is, what a Microsoft Graph is, and then basically a small overview, right? So if you don't know about it, that's about it. And there is one change um, that has happened since Winnie wrote this blog um, is that the OAuth redirect key that we need to put into your Azure application. Um, the redirect URI used to be this in the past when probably when you wrote this blog in 2022, but now the connector has changed it to a different path, and it's a small it's a small variation. But when you go to set up the app, it will tell you what part to put in over there. But this, if you want to do it for your local host, then this is the part. So they've added the Microsoft Graph as an additional parameter, or URL path over here, right? So um, that's about it. That's a small change, but everything else in Vinit's documentation works well, so feel free to go through it. And yeah, so that's about the connector. What I've done is, if you go to the authentication app, so this mainly will be done by the admin of your application, so who also probably has access to your Microsoft admin accounts, right? So over there, and then uh, they can set up this thing, or if they are open on giving you credentials, then they would give you the credentials for this app, and then you can do it from there. But basically what you would need is to go here to the options, and I have one authorized user, right? I have set up my app, but what you would have to do is go to options, and sorry, not go to options, but first, that's my app, so I can edit my changes from here. But for what you will have to do is go click add authentication, put in a display name for the app. For mine, I've given as MS Graph Tutorial, but you can give it anything. The client ID and directory and secret is what will be provided by your um, what will be provided by your admin to you. So you need to treat those very securely. And then scopes is something that, again, your admin will give you things, but it's something like what you want access to. If you want access to just read emails, then it will be a different, that will be a scope for it. If the admin wants to give you control over sending emails as well, that will be a different scope, right? Reading profiles, writing into different profiles, teams chat, and all those things. So that's what it is, for scope, right? um, and then you can activate, deactivate from here. The callback URL that I spoke about, or the redirect URL that I spoke about earlier, is also mentioned over here. So that's that. From here, you cannot add any new scope, but if you want to add new scope, you can just, once you click on authorize user, you will get a metadata tab over here, and then once you click on it, you can go and add new ones, new scopes, right? So the scopes that I have added in my application are, should be all visible over here. So these are the scopes that I have added, right? So most of them, some of them would be repeats and all those things, but I was trying different things, so that's why. But if you see here, I have one scope I have is called mail.send. um, the other one is chat message.send, so that's for, probably for Teams chats. I haven't tried that one yet. um, then once I go into users, I'll get a list of first I'll get my profile. So the admin, whoever is the admin for this particular app, will, you'll see that person's profile. If you, I've added a new tab called my mail, but by default it has my profile, all users, and direct reports. For me, direct reports is empty because there's no one reporting to me. I'm a single person organization, or right. So I have created different multiple accounts, like hello at goldenearth.ca, mine is Neil at goldenearth.ca, and all those things. But those will come up under the all users tab. If you go to my mail, if you go to my mail, um, again, I'm not showing all the emails. I'm showing all the emails I've received, but I'm not showing any of the details here. So just to, just so that you know, I don't want to give out my private information. That's why. Or yeah. So, but these are all the sample emails that I was trying until now, uh, and most of them are for, all of them are from today. Okay, so I was trying the new mail functionality, so that's why it is. But receive date, send date, and all those things, right? So, one of the examples would be, sorry, the other thing I've added is sending a mail from here, so admin can send an email. So say I want to send it to myself, Neil at goldenearth.ca, right? So it'll send an email to myself. um, I can set up anything, say hello, testing, um, so that can be hi, and then that's about it. And I can, if I send this email, it says email sent successfully, which means there was no error. And you see, I've already received my email, right? So dismiss. Um, so that's how the email functionality. You can integrate the email functionality into this one. Now there are a few more things that I've added. So say if you want to have an application, right? So your application could be, say, can be an e-commerce application where you want to send your users an email when they place an order. For this is just an example, but could be anything. So say I want to create a, so say I'm just creating a sample form, right? Submitting a sample form, but say this could be your order, and then your sample input is hello again, right? So that's my thing, and then I'm putting my email over here. So, and once I say save or submit my order, will again get an email that says hello again, right? So I should get an email once the form is submitted. And let's wait for the form to be submitted, and the email to go through. Oh, I have a breakpoint. Okay, so that's why it took a longer time. So let me remove the breakpoint, and you see that I got an email that says So what we put in, right? So new sample entry or sample entity, and then new sample entity was created with the name again, same in sample input as hello again. So we got that one. Now let's go back to our application and see. It says email sent successfully, right? Now this is from the admin. Now how do you let your users access these kind of things, right? So when you're giving access to users, you have to be very careful on what access you give them, or how careful you are. So um, let me sign out and log in as Neil, right? So I'm logging in as Neil, and now what happens is my user has access only to home and sample form. And then if you also see that the previous one had more than two or more than three, I think, or three sample inputs, but here I see only one, because this is again XPath restricted to show only this user's entries. So say if I do a new entry and say um, hello, uh, and again put this as my own email, right? I could send email to someone else also from here, but so this is when I say that you as a developer need to restrict everything is so when I say is this, because you don't want your users to be able to send email to everyone, because this one will go out from the admin and not from you who is logged in, right? So in my case I'm logged in as Neil, and then my Neil is also an admin, so it doesn't matter. But say if you're logged in as XYZ and your admin is Neil, then it'll look like Neil sent email to someone. So we need to be careful about letting the users not have access to this, to whom they want to send email to. So it should be the application deciding it, but I put it here just for demonstration purposes, right? Again, email sent successfully, and we got the sample as hello. Now the other thing I've built in is also for schedule functionality or schedule event functionality. I will not be able to show you a schedule event functionality because you cannot log in on um, you cannot log in or you cannot have a schedule event running on your local machine. So you will have to deploy your application to the cloud for that to run, right? So what we would do is I have I'll show you how to create a scheduled event. But for now what I've done is I have a microflow that the scheduled event should run. And so I've also created a button for admin where you can trigger the scheduled event, right? So say for example we want to send a count of today's count of the orders or the sample entries, right? So um, I think one of these entries was created by me um, before I started tracking the created user, or sorry, the create date and all those things for the user. So for that, uh, if you go to my domain model, okay. So before I started tracking the change date, created date, owner, and all those things, um, that's when I had created I created a record before that. So you might not see the correct result, which is 4, but you might see 3. So let's see. Or I might be wrong. Let's. So it says email sent successful, and it says okay. So 3 sample entries were created for the date 11/9/23. So that's again, it's giving me. So if you were to create, or if you were to add this as a scheduled event and run it at 11:58, 11:59, or depending on how big your records are and how long it takes to run the or fetch the records and run the whole query. But say if you run this at 11:55 or 11:58, 59 every day, and then you can have a group of users who can get this email every day, so they don't have to go in and check your daily reports and all those things. So that can be an amazing thing for scheduled events. And for the email I showed you for users, it can be amazing to send automatic emails. So So that's what it is. Now let's go take a look at our implementation quickly. And so what I've done is I've gone ahead and installed the Microsoft Graph connector, right? um, that's one. This is my first modules, but yeah. So I've connected my, or I've installed the Microsoft Graph connector. I've done all the setup and everything, so that's good. There are few things that you can, so for reusability purposes, Microsoft Graph connector here, created by Mendix, has great resources. So if you go here, private resources and actions, you see all these API calls, right? So these are reusable API calls. So you don't have to write your REST activities everywhere. For example, what I have done in one of my example here is that send mail. So what I've done is I'm reusing the post call to make a call, right? So I don't have to worry about setting up my creating the REST activity, what headers to send, what request body to send, all those setting up those things, right? How to do error handling and all those things. So that's amazing. Now, if you look at this, I just have to give my request, right? So what the request body is, and I have to give them my location. So location meaning what my URL is, and then content type and the authorization object, which has your keys and everything. So that's all I have to do to reuse the post from here, which is again amazing. I don't have to worry about logic on sending the email, right? I just have to worry about what I want to send in the email. So my request comes from an export JSON. So, and this is my location, so Microsoft Graph location, what, so that is your base URL, right? It can be localhost 8080 if you are doing on your local machine at port 8080. But if you have an environment, then you can set this up again in the admin. So that's also easy. And then this is the path for sending an email. So that's what we do here. Um, and then yeah, we send the email. That's how it is. So let's look at one of the flows, right? So say for users, what we do is we go to okay. So this is a new, when you create a new entity, right? So what happens is when you click save button after putting a sample input, so like hello, hello, hello again, and then the email, right? And you click save, what happens is it goes to a new microflow. We commit our object first, and then we call this um, save sample micro and send email, right? So I create a new email form. So that's how I set up my domain model. So um, this is just my send email form. It has recipient email address, what content I want to send in the email, and what subject line I want. That's all right. So what you have to do is recipient address was what in the sample entity, and then content was what I want to do. So I put it as a new sample entity was created with sample input, and then whatever you inputted in the form is what I'll put here. And subject is fixed for me right now, but you could put anything you want. My subject is new sample entity. If it is your e-commerce and someone is placing an order, you could put in your order number over there. So once that is done, I get the authorization object. And then once I get the authorization object, what I do is I do send email, right? So okay, what send email does is it creates all these objects. But the reason it creates all these objects is because um sorry so Microsoft wants their request, your email request body in this format, in this JSON format, right? So needs first message, and then its child would be subject, or its value would be again another object which has subject body, and then again another object which has content type and content. And then so this is the structure basically it wants, right? And if you're sending it to they could send it to multiple recipients as well, because this is an array, right? So when you do two recipients, what you could end up doing is um, have multiple of these objects, or you can put comma and keep adding more if you want, right? So we don't want to handle our string manipulation or JSON manipulation by ourselves. So what we end up doing is we do we put it in a JSON structure, that this is a sample body, right? Or this is a structure of JSON we want as an output, and we'll use export map for that. So once you bring in your JSON structure into this, you can select what elements you want to export, right? But we want to export everything. So if you look here, I have selected everything in this case. Now what we can do is we set up the whole and it brings in this whole structure for us, say, and it builds the association or child parent and relationship and everything, right? So it's, if you look at this, this is 0 to 1, this is again 0 to 1, but the two recipients to two recipient is 0 to many. So which is again amazing. And then to do this, what you can do is, once you have, if you don't have these entity built in, what you can do is you can click map automatically, and Mendix will create all the domain model attributes for you, or entities for you, sorry, with the necessary attributes, right? So that's how I had done it. And then I don't like how they make it look, so I cleaned up to make it look in a more beautiful manner. So that's the only thing I've done. And then I've changed the name from root to send mail root. So that's what I done. Now when I want to send an email, I need to create all these objects and put the necessary values in, right? And put the right associations as well. So that's what I do. So when I go to this send email, what I do is create a new send mail route, and then create a new message, right? So new message is the second one. So send mail route, new message. Um, Again, message has an association with send mail route, right? And then the subject line in it. And then we also create two recipients, which has a connection with new message, right? And we create new body, which also has a connection with new message. And then there's no child for new body, right? Yes, but two recipients have multiple, can have multiple children, that is two recipients, and then email address. So that's how I build the whole form, and then send the root to the JSON request, or not the JSON request, sorry, the export mapping request. And then it gives me a request body, and then I have a location here where I want to send the email, so me/email, and I give it to the post, reusable post, and then it does everything else for me, right? And then I just check if it was a success or not. If it was a success, I close the page and show you a message that says email sent successfully, and delete. And if it was not a success, I parse the HTTP response. Again, this parsing of the HTTP response comes from the graph connector. So this is a reusable object, this is reusable. I just pulled it from one of the calls that they do, right, and put it here. So then I put an extra message saying, oh, with an error sending you in your email, and then delete the send email root object, because we're not going to send an email again. So that's how I've implemented the email. Now the way I've implemented the schedule, actually I'll walk you quickly through this because it's easy. So what I do here is I get a list of sample entity from the database, and then I just create a variable that is today's date to put it in the email. But from the list that we got from the database, I filter all the records that fall on today. So this is my query to check what's the date. If some objects don't have date for some reason, right? So for example, if you started capturing date after you had 1,000 records in the system, then you need to put in this situation, right? Or this condition, sorry, where you ignore the ones that has empty created date. So you check begin of day, end of day, and those things. And once you have that list, You just get a count of it, and once you get that count, you put it in this, you create a send mail form. So that is send email to Neil, that's your admin, that's my admin, or that's me. um, and then put the content in it, and put what the subject line is, and that's it. And then take the authorization object and use the send mail activity which we just took a look at the whole thing, right? And this becomes my reusable send email microflow. So that's how it is done, about sending emails, or the microflow for sending a scheduled activity now, or scheduled event. So now how do you set up a scheduled event? You can right click and create scheduled event and give it some kind of a name. Once you give it some kind of a name, um, you can go ahead and select what microflow you want to call from it, and then enabled or disabled, how, what's the interval type you want to run, so yearly, monthly, weekly. You can have any kind of reports you want built using this. So that's one. What time of the day you want to send it, and then the time should be UTC time or server time. And if there's an overlap, which means a previous one is still running when you do the next one, then you can skip the next one, right? Or if the current one is already running when, like, but if you're doing it daily, then it doesn't matter much, because um, your task would have finished. No, if your task runs for more than 24 hours, then there's something wrong with your task, so you need to investigate that. But so this is what you do. And then once you deploy this application to your cloud environment, you'll be able to access settings for the scheduled event, and change them if you want, or just enable, disable it. So that's how you do the scheduled event. So just for recap, right, what did we do? We learned about um, Microsoft Graph, or how to install a connector, or how to just get a connector, readme documentation, all those things. Installing is again easy, just hit the marketplace button here and download it from there, right? So that's an easier part. But we learn how to configure connector into Mendix application, how to create reusable, or how to use its reusable resources out of it, how to create custom experiences based off of that, how to send emails, or how to do reusable REST APIs or REST microflows, how to do scheduled events. So this there was a lot of stuff that we learned in this video. And if you want to learn more, please request access to the application by clicking in the link below, and or in the description, and you should be receiving your access soon. But I hope you are able to take this application ahead and build more things on top of it, or you're able to use it in one of your projects. So yeah, let me know how it goes, and I would definitely love to hear your feedback on it. And thank you so much, guys. Have a good day.